So from here, the difference is that we've mounted this piece. It's the other half of the same blank that we did our full bowl out of. And I have since sharpened my bowl gouge. So we're getting there. Just a hair more. That's just about what we wanted to do. So, our next step, I'll be right there, is to glue the bark on. We have to glue the bark on because the wood is going to shrink as it dries, but the bark doesn't shrink. It will compress, but it won't shrink. And if we don't glue the bark on, when the wood shrinks, the bark will naturally separate out. And so I'm using acrylate glue, which is a super glue. It dries very quickly. And I'm getting the glue into the bark and into the cambrian, which is there's a yellow line between the darker colored bark and the sapwood, which is quite white looking. So the different parts of the tree are really exposed. And for a natural edge like this, the roundness of the blank will dictate sort of the ultimate shape of what you're going to get, because I'm going to cut away the inside when I hollow. So that's glued the bark. Now I'm going to use the accelerator. And again, remembering that the bark is not that green or wet. Before I cut the inside out, I'm going to use a sander. So I'll come back now. I have glued the bark on and make a very light final cut. And that's about all we can do to that at this point. But that is just about perfect, and I'll go back to how we mounted it. That was just held by those prongs. And that's because I didn't have a flat surface to mount a faceplate or to use something else. Now, let's see if I did a better job of guessing. Yeah, I did a good job of guessing. The bowl gouge is king for this kind of turning. Okay. It's a little heavier, a little more rugged piece of steel than the much lighter and more limber spindle gouges. And it's sharpened a bit differently. because it really gets a different kind of beating. So what we have now is we're going to hollow out this little bowl, and I'll probably lose some of this bark just because it's too fragile, but I may hit that one with a little bit more glue and maybe keep it. The glue will help it stay, but the act of cutting it is trauma enough.
What's that piece that your hand is on called?
This is called the tool rest.
Tool rest. Okay.
Some people call it the hand rest, but your hands never rest on it. So
okay, it's just the tool.
It's a tool rest, yes. This piece is called the banjo. We don't know why. I don't know why. But that's what it's called. It's the banjo. This is the tool rest. Headstock, tailstock, chuck, live center, because we're using ball bearing style.
Okay. And the position of the
tool rest.
That matters.
Matters a lot in terms of, it's part of that fourth dimension of how you're going to address. Because you can imagine, if I move the tool rest away and it's spinning around, I really don't have much chance to do anything.
Right.
And this gives me an opportunity to make decisions about how I position the tool, because I really want it to be just above center.
Okay.
I want it to be cutting as the wood's advancing into it, rather than as the wood is leaving it.
Okay.
Now, as you can imagine, this is inherently dangerous because I'm going to lose sight of most of this.
Yeah.
And I don't want to lose sight of it because it's going to hit me and hurt me. Now, the key is you see that this looks larger than this because the wall thickness is not there yet.
Right.
As I go down, I've got to select and decide on my wall thickness. Some of that's a matter of how well affixed the bark is. And when I get the bark done, I'll glue it from the inside too. Now you'll see the difference in this has been reduced. This is a more even wall thickness up here, and this is going to start to become flimsy.
Yeah.
So I have to do my finish cuts here. I can't come back and do anything there until it's dried and I'm hand sanding it. One of the things about these, this style of bowl, is it dries pretty readily. You can see we lost our bark here.
Yeah.
did my graduate work in trying to define what makes people expert at something.
Ah.
What's the difference between a novice and an expert? And we decided, we looked at people that are all about those baseball statistics and chess players. And we did a number of experiments. I was part of a group doing it. And we discovered that experts are people that have already made that mistake and don't want to make it again. Now, if I did this. And now, oh, we got plenty, we'll be fine. We're not always fine. Sometimes I misjudge. And you generally don't misjudge until near the end, after you put all that time and effort into it. I think that's one of the rules. It's going to work out just fine. Now, I'd have trouble if I tried to work on this again.
Yeah.
I can't. Don't need to. And what's going to happen is, your question earlier was opportune, because when this piece shrinks, the side walls are going to shrink more than the end walls, because the grain's running end to end.
Right.
And that's actually going to cause the end walls to turn up like this. Because it actually is going to get a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
Because of the shrinking.
Wow.
So the thing is going to go oval. And because it's wringing wet, it'll go oval more than one that's kind of dry.
Yeah.
Now, one of the challenges ultimately is to make the bottom as lovely as the other parts, because inevitably when somebody picks any of these bowls up, the first thing they look at is the bottom.
There.
And we like to say they're looking for the screw holes.